In 1913, President Woodrow Wilson promised to keep America out of foreign wars. Months later, he ordered U.S. Marines to storm Mexico's largest port. Why? The truth isn't the story you learned in school. Today, we uncover 3 shocking reasons Wilson invaded Mexico, and number 2 will make your blood boil. Was it national honor, cold-blooded politics, or something far more corrupt? And why did Congress and the press play along? Let's pull apart the lies, one layer at a time, and look at why America rewarded this invasion with more medals than any battle in history. Before we continue uncovering this forgotten chapter of history, take a moment to subscribe. Your support helps bring more untold stories like this to light. In 1913, newly elected U.S. President Woodrow Wilson confidently declared, "I'm going to teach the South American republics to elect good men." This was despite his campaign promises to avoid foreign wars. Not long after taking office, Wilson ordered a military strike on Mexico. Dissatisfied with Mexican President Victoriano Huerta, Wilson secretly planned the armed seizure of Mexico's largest port. This fact often surprises Americans, even those familiar with official accounts, which tend to describe the incident as an occupation, implying that U.S. forces were invited. In truth, it was an outright invasion that left nearly 200 Mexicans and 24 Americans dead, as U.S. troops seized and held the port city of Veracruz from April 21st to November 23, 1914. Why Wilson gave the order remains unclear. At the time, Mexico was engulfed in a bloody civil war. Concerned for American citizens, particularly those working in Mexican oil fields, Wilson positioned a naval fleet in the Gulf of Mexico in early 1914, ostensibly to protect American lives. In reality, the president had already resolved to invade. Thousands of U.S. Marines boarded Navy transports to join the fleet off Veracruz, while the Army prepared a combat brigade in Texas for rapid deployment from Galveston. By the time these forces were ready, all that remained was to find a suitable pretext. Official histories cite an April 9, 1914, incident in Tampico. 9 sailors from the USS Dolphin landed without permission in a restricted military zone, supposedly to purchase gasoline, and were detained by Mexican soldiers. They were released an hour later, yet American Admiral Henry Mayo demanded a formal apology. After receiving it, he further insisted on a 21-gun salute to the U.S. flag. An unreasonable demand the local general ignored, being occupied with revolutionary fighting nearby. Wilson branded this refusal an insult and asked Congress for authorization to attack Mexico. Before Congress acted, a U.S. diplomat in Veracruz reported that the German freighter Ipiranga was due to arrive carrying rifles and ammunition for Huerta's government. Wilson, who supported rival revolutionary leader Venustiano Carranza, saw this as his chance. On April 21, 1914, Admiral Frank Fletcher, stationed offshore with an invasion force, received orders from the White House to seize the port. Fletcher informed Mexican General Gustavo Mas that his men would take control of the waterfront. Mas withdrew his soldiers but armed local militia and naval cadets to defend the city if needed. At 10:50 a.m., 500 Marines and 300 sailors came ashore at Pier 4 without initial resistance. They quickly secured the pier and customs house, where the German ship was scheduled to dock before advancing to seize the post office, telegraph office, rail yard, cable station, and power plant. Sporadic gunfire broke out, prompting Fletcher to order the capture of the entire city. Over the next few days, Marines and sailors fought through Veracruz, conducting building-to-building searches while Navy ships offshore bombarded select targets. Huerta sent no reinforcements, and by April 28th, the Americans controlled Veracruz at a cost of 22 American dead and 70 wounded, against roughly 160 Mexican dead and 200 wounded. That same day, the U.S. Army's 5th Brigade landed with 3,000 soldiers, anticipating further combat that never came. Wilson may have hoped to push onward to Mexico City alongside Carranza's forces, but Carranza publicly denounced the invasion. Mexicans had not forgotten the U.S.-Mexican War of 1846 to 1848 and resented yet another intervention. Anti-American demonstrations spread, forcing thousands of U.S. nationals to flee Mexico. The international reaction was equally negative. Great Britain and all Latin American nations condemned the attack. At home, the invasion faced criticism from a public weary of foreign entanglements. Without Carranza's cooperation and facing growing backlash, Wilson abandoned plans for further advances. The occupation continued pointlessly for 5 months until U.S. forces finally withdrew. Official historians often portray the operation as spontaneous, but evidence shows it was planned weeks in advance. The advanced base regiment's 500 Marines, not part of regular ship detachments, had already been transported to the area. An additional 1,500 Marines from Panama landed the same day. Staging, organizing, and transporting such a force, along with the Army's 5th Brigade, which officially departed Texas on April 23rd, would have required considerable preparation. In fact, photographs show Army transports unloading at Veracruz as early as April 22nd. The justification for seizing German arms also collapses under scrutiny. The weapons were American-made by Remington and financed by U.S. businessman John Wesley Decay, shipped aboard a German vessel to deter U.S. seizure at sea. If capturing these arms was truly the goal, the Americans could have waited for their arrival. Instead, they landed hours before the Ipiranga docked, prompting the ship to leave and unload at another Mexican port, unmolested by the U.S. Navy. Back in Washington, Wilson recast the invasion as a great triumph. The U.S. awarded an astonishing 55 Medals of Honor, more than for any other single action in history, many to officers and sailors who never left their ships. Marine Major Smedley Butler, one of the recipients, returned his medal, saying he had done nothing to deserve it. In reality, the most tangible outcome was the looting of Veracruz's customs house, which functioned as a federal treasury. The money stored there, used to pay foreign debts, including obligations to New York bankers, was gone when U.S. forces departed. The deaths, destruction, and theft ensured U.S.-Mexican relations remained strained for decades to come. And so, we arrive at the end of a chapter that began with promises of peace and ended with the thunder of American guns on foreign shores. These shocking reasons revealed a deeper layer of ambition, deception, and cold calculation. We've seen how political theater can mask a planned invasion, how medals can be minted for a war no one declared, and how history can be rewritten to hide the price paid in lives and trust. But what lessons do we carry forward here? That national honor can be twisted into political leverage. That even in a democracy, wars can be born in secrecy, or that the truth of a battle often survives only in the cracks of the official story. These events are more than footnotes. They are a mirror. They force us to ask when the next crisis comes, will we see it for what it is, or only for what we are told it to be? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, if this invasion truly safeguarded America's honor, then why did it take decades for our own historians to admit it was never about honor at all? Don't forget to subscribe for more America Empire history videos that help rethink and mark the truth straight.